Time now for spinning my dad's vinyl. Here, with all his skips, scratches, and pops, is my dad, Frank Barcarolle.
Thanks, sweetie. And thank you for tuning into episode 253 of Spinning My Dad's Vinyl. And happy Valentine's Day. Of course, my dad had plenty of romantic music. So that's why we are able to do this special episode.
There was a popular radio format known as easy listening. We listened to one of those stations from Cleveland when we were young. And there was one extremely popular orchestra that was the backbone of those radio station playlists, 101 Strings.
So, get ready to hear the lush sound that immediately gets you into a romantic mood in Volume 253, Valentines is for Lovers.
101 Strings with Evening Star from Tannhauser, written by Richard Wagner. Okay, why this record for this episode? Well, Valentine's Day is the most romantic day of the year, so we should celebrate it with some of the most beautiful music from the Romantic period, and of course, celebrate it with my honey.
Ah, right. And you can't get more romantic than Debussy, Rachmaninoff, and Brahms, among the others you'll hear. And when I saw this record from 101 Strings, I knew it would be a great combination. I recognized the orchestra as being a favorite among easy listening DJs. Next up is a tune from a melancholy musical. Barcarolle from Tales of Hoffmann, written by Jacques Offenbach. Now let me tell you about my dad's vinyl we are spinning for this episode. 101 strings, 101 strings and a symphony for lovers on the Somerset label P4500. It's a vinyl LP album format, released in 1957. Its genre is classical style romantic. It was arranged by Joseph Kuhn, conducted by Wilhelm Steffen, and we will hear all 7 songs on the album. Now, the liner notes are not very long. We'll read all but a couple of sentences here, and that one will move on to the bio section.
In this symphony for lovers, 101 strings, play new arrangements of songs and movements from the world of classical music. These selections have the emotional depth as could only come from the masters of the Romantic period in music. The lush magnificence and emotional depth of 101 strings is due to a combination of factors. First in importance is the concept of scoring for the strings. The necessity of using 101 string instruments is to utilize various harmonies and voicings and not weaken the dynamics or quality of any one line when playing counterlines. It is particularly important with the violins and violas. The listener will know that at times the melody line is in full presence and possibly a full and lovely counter line is being played without sacrificing the full dynamic value of either. Secondly, the original performances have been recorded under the most exacting audio engineering standards, with specially designed microphones and characteristics to compensate for any possible distortion from the tremendous bass frequency response in cellos and string bass. Third, and of extreme importance, are the players themselves. They represent the finest musicians in Europe today. In fact, there are 11 concert meisters in the first chairs.
This album is among the first of a series of 24 to be released exclusively by Somerset Records in 1958. These will include Broadway musical scores, mood music, travel impressions, standard popular songs from film scores and classics. No matter what your preference is in music, there is a rich and rewarding listening experience waiting you with 101 strings. Okay, let's see what prices this record is being sold at on Discogs.com. $5.99 for a high, 49 cents for a low. That gives it $1.89 average and $1.25 median. It was last sold on June 23rd, 2025 for that $5.99 high. Now, my dad's vinyl is in really good condition. I wonder how much he played it after initially buying it. The sound recording was really clean, as was the surface. The cover is also in really good condition. You can hardly tell that it was produced nearly 70 years ago. There are none of the usual markings and no address label on the front. I'm not sure why this album got spared that. So I'll value my dad's vinyl at $2.
Up next, a man who was only considered the 3rd best Czech composer.
Poem, written by Zdeněk Fibich. Time now for this episode's interesting side note, and it has to do with this orchestra being the backbone of a very powerful radio music format.
You know, when people talk about romantic music, they usually jump straight to crooners or slow dance ballads. But tonight we want to shine a little heart-shaped spotlight on a whole radio format that quietly defined romance for millions of couples. Easy listening. Back in the day, if a Cleveland office building had beige carpet, a couple of heroic potted ficus, and a receptionist wearing a headset, you could be almost certain that 101 strings was drifting through the air vents like a polite fog. It was the sound of paperwork, perfume, and people falling half in love over coffee breaks. And the stations leaned into it. WQAL, in its early beautiful music years, became so mellow that people jokingly called it WQUAALUDE, because once you tuned in, time slowed down and stress just melted off your shoulders. This wasn't music that demanded attention. It wrapped around you. It was romance in a sensible cardigan, perfect for Valentine's Day before anyone needed to swipe right.
Aw, I didn't have to swipe right with this one. We were sitting there enjoying some live music when I first asked her out. In fact, we're still very much into seeing live music as much as we can. Just don't ask me to sing to her.
Serenade, written by Franz Schubert. There's not really a bio about this artist, but we can give you the background on them. 101 Strings weren't really a band so much as a musical idea that took on a life of its own. The name was created in 1957 by producers David L. Miller and Al Sherman for the Somerset and Stereo Fidelity labels. Instead of a single orchestra, they used top studio musicians from New York and Europe, recording under a unified brand. Different conductors, different cities, same velvety sound. From Broadway to movie themes, Latin rhythms to holiday albums, they became a factory of lush, orchestral mood music.
They kept recording steadily through the 1960s and 70s, tapering off in the early 1980s as the easy listening format itself began to fade. By then, they had released hundreds of albums, maybe more than any artist in pop history. They were so popular because they were dependable, warm, and endlessly adaptable. If radio needed music that could make the world feel softer for 3 minutes at a time, 101 Strings were already in the crate, waiting to be pulled gently into the light. These are those sentences from the liner notes now. Depending on the selections and arrangements, the orchestra is composed of 128 to 141 players. Of these, there are 31 first violins, 26 second violins, 20 violas, 18 cellos, and 7 string basses. The rest may be in woodwinds, brass, or percussion. Now, for probably the most romantic composer of the bunch. Second Piano Concerto, third movement, written by Sergei Rachmaninoff. Now we're going to take a moment to remember our first Valentine's Day together. It was 2020, just before all the lockdowns, when we started a dinner tradition we've been able to do every year so far. Maybe a day or two off because of our work schedule.
And that's dining at a great little Italian restaurant in Willoughby, Ohio, by the name of Pranza. They always have really good food and a delightful staff. In fact, we've had the same waiter several times, including that first year. Last night was our 7th visit to this restaurant on Valentine's Day weekend. I had to work today. That first Valentine's date also included a great show by a Queen cover band at the Music Supper Club of Cleveland. Queen Flash was out of Canada and they were wonderful.
And we've been back to the Supper Club of Cleveland several times since then, too. Like I said, we like our live music. Now, back to the romantic music. Reverie, written by Claude Debussy. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. I don't remember this album cover from my growing up days in the house. I'm sure I would not have been interested in the music on it, even if I do remember it. It's a simple cover with two images. In the upper right, there is a photo of the orchestra on the Hamburg, Germany stage where they recorded this record. The lower left has an image of a woman being wrapped in a fur coat, her lover, just off camera. 101 Strings is in an elaborate font and some curly cues on the upper left, with the title of the album Symphony for Lovers on the lower right.
I had never heard of the orchestra when Frank mentioned them, but after he explained the radio format and WQAL in Cleveland, I kind of knew what he was talking about. It was some very romantic music.
Now, it's time to say goodnight. Well, that's what one might think of when they hear this melody.
Cradle Song, written by Johann Brahms. And there you have the entire album filled with this romantic music for Valentine's Day.
So thanks for tuning into Volume 253. Valentines is for lovers however you did. If you want more information about this show, head over to spinningmydadsvinyl.com. I'll be back soon with something special just for you. Until then,
Go with the flow, my friends.